Welcome back everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the incredible world of rare and valuable coins, where tiny pieces of metal that most of us walk by or spend without a second thought can actually turn out to be life-changing treasures worth unimaginable amounts of money. And today we are going to unravel the astonishing story behind the 1987 1-cent coin, a small copper-plated zinc coin that most people might overlook but which in some extraordinary cases can be worth an unbelievable $403 million because of its shocking and fascinating minting errors, unexpected variations, and the rare combinations of circumstances that make it one of the most desirable error coins for serious collectors and auction houses around the world. So sit back and imagine holding a coin that could make you a multimillionaire overnight, a coin that has gone from being worth a single cent to becoming a treasure capable of changing lives. Because the 1987 1-cent error coins have everything from double die obverses to dramatic off-center strikes, wrong planchette strikes, broad strikes, transitional errors, die clashes, cut breaks, missing letters, rotated dies, ghosting errors, and other extremely rare striking anomalies that make each of these flawed pieces a unique masterpiece of numismatic history, attracting attention from collectors, museums, investors, and enthusiasts who understand the enormous significance of genuine mint errors, especially from a year like 1987. When millions of these coins were minted but only a minuscule fraction exhibit these astonishing mistakes that skyrocket their value. And when we say $403 million, we are talking about an accumulation of rarity, auction results, provenance, insurance valuation, and collector frenzy that can build around a coin once it's authenticated, documented, and recognized as one of the finest or most extraordinary known examples of its kind, because in the coin collecting world, rarity and error complexity often translate into astronomical figures, and the 1987 1-cent with extreme errors is a perfect example of that. Now let's break down what makes this particular year and these errors so intriguing. Because unlike many other years, the 1987 1-cent coins were struck during a period when the US Mint was still dealing with the aftermath of the change from copper to copper-plated zinc composition that began in 1982, and that transitional period led to a number of striking issues including planchette flaws, improper bonding of the copper plating, gas bubbles under the surface, weak strikes, and other unexpected production errors that are now highly sought after, and among the most valuable versions of the 1987 penny is the one struck on a wrong planchette, where the coin was accidentally struck on a foreign planchette or on a blank meant for a different denomination, leading to a weight that doesn't match the standard 2.5 grams and producing off-color appearances that immediately signal something unusual. And when this type of coin is found in pristine uncirculated condition or certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, it can fetch jaw-dropping prices at auction, especially when combined with other errors such as double die features or misaligned dies. Imagine one such coin showing a dramatic double die obverse where the word Liberty appears doubled with clear, thick spread visible under magnification, and the date 1987 shows ghost-like overlapping digits, an error so sharp and clear that it instantly draws attention from experienced collectors who know how rare such crisp doubling is, and if the reverse also carries a misalignment or an off-center strike, the value increases exponentially, because combinations of multiple major errors on one coin are almost unheard of, making that single-cent coin one of a kind, and in the world of rare coins, one of a kind often equals millions of dollars, especially when demand is fueled by collectors trying to complete specific error sets. Another rare form of the 1987 penny error is the broad strike error, where the coin was struck without a collar or with a malfunctioning collar die, causing the metal to expand outward beyond its normal rim and creating a uniquely wide, flat appearance that experienced numismatists can identify instantly. And this kind of error, when sharp and in mint state condition, especially with full strike details, becomes a centerpiece in any error coin collection. And then there are the coins with dramatic off-center strikes where the design is shifted anywhere from 5% to even 95% off the center, creating these fascinating crescent shapes that expose blank areas of the planchette. And the more dramatic the off-center and the more of the date remains visible, the more valuable the coin becomes, and collectors especially covet off-center errors that show a full clear date and mint mark, because without those features it becomes much harder to authenticate and establish rarity. One of the most mind-blowing 1987 penny era types involves die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies came into contact without a planchette between them, transferring mirror-like ghost images of Lincoln's portrait or the Lincoln Memorial design onto the opposing die, and then when coins were struck afterward, those ghost images appear faintly but clearly on the struck coins, creating an eerie doubled effect that error specialists find irresistible, and if such a coin is also in gem condition with full original mint luster, it can easily cross into 6- or 7-figure territory at auction, and in some extreme cases, collectors have paid more than expected because the visual effect of the clash is so dramatic and aesthetically striking. Another highly desirable anomaly involves rotated dies where the obverse and reverse of the coin are rotated significantly relative to one another, and a strong rotation of 90 or even 180 degrees is extremely rare and visually impactful. And when such a rotation error is combined with other striking issues like off-center or doubled dies, the coin becomes a holy grail for error collectors, often driving bidding wars at major numismatic auctions that push the price into the millions. But what truly makes the 1987 penny capable of reaching an astonishing $403 million valuation is not just one isolated error but the theoretical existence of an ultra-rare specimen with multiple major minting mistakes, perfect preservation, strong provenance, and intense collector interest, because in numismatics, record-breaking prices often come from a confluence of factors rather than a single trait. And imagine a coin struck on a transitional copper planchette instead of zinc, with a strong double die obverse, a broad strike, 50% off-center with the date fully visible, a dramatic die clash ghosting Lincoln's portrait, rotated dies, and even a small die break forming a cut at the rim that further adds uniqueness, all in gem mint state conditions certified by a top-tier grading service with a population of 1. And if such a coin were to surface at a major auction like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, collectors from around the globe would line up to bid, investors would see it as a one-of-a-kind asset, museums might step in to secure it, and the final hammer price could indeed reach a mind-boggling figure like $403 million, cementing it as one of the most valuable coins in history. What makes these scenarios even more exciting is that these coins can still occasionally be found in circulation, tucked away in old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten rolls of pennies in basements and attics, because most people don't check their change closely, and these errors often go unnoticed by untrained eyes. So the idea of an everyday person discovering a life-changing treasure in their pocket change is not as far-fetched as it seems, and this possibility fuels the fascination and the hunt for rare 1987 pennies, especially among hobbyists who know what to look for. Die breaks and cud errors on 1987 pennies can also contribute significantly to their value, because when a part of the die cracks or chips away, it leaves a raised blob or missing piece of design on the struck coin, creating a distinctive and often dramatic appearance. And larger cud breaks are rarer and more valuable, especially when they don't obscure the date or major design elements, and these cud errors can fetch tens of thousands of dollars on their own in high grade, but when they are part of a coin with multiple errors, the cumulative rarity pushes the value to astronomical levels. Missing letters and weak strikes are another fascinating category where parts of the design don't strike up fully due to grease-filled dies or other issues, leaving incomplete inscriptions like I in God We Trust, Liberty, or E Pluribus Unum, and although minor grease-filled dies are fairly common, dramatic, or nearly full missing inscriptions in combination with other errors are much rarer, and their market value reflects that scarcity. Next, 1996 D1 cent USA coin. where the smallest details can transform an ordinary piece of change into an unbelievable fortune. And today we are exploring one of the most astonishing discoveries in coin collecting history, the 1996 D1 cent coin that in certain rare cases can be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $287 million because of its unique combination of minting errors, production mistakes, and extreme rarity that have made it one of the most desirable and mysterious coins among collectors and investors alike. So if you've ever thought that the pennies jingling in your pocket couldn't possibly be worth more than face value, think again, because this 1996 D penny tells a story of how imperfection, timing, and luck can collide to produce something so rare and valuable that it becomes the stuff of legend in the numismatic world. And as we unravel the secrets of this extraordinary coin, we'll go deep into the possible minting errors that make it so valuable, the science behind those mistakes, how experts authenticate them, and why collectors are willing to pay staggering sums to own a coin that technically started its life worth just 1 cent. The year 1996 was an interesting one for the United States Mint, as it was continuing the production of copper-plated zinc pennies that had replaced the traditional copper composition back in 1982. But despite advancements in minting technology, errors and inconsistencies still occurred, and at the Denver Mint, where the D mint mark identifies the coin's origin, some of the most dramatic and fascinating mint errors of the modern era were produced. Among these errors are coins that defy logic, such as double die obverse strikes, broad strikes, misaligned dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchette strikes, transitional errors, die cracks, cut breaks, missing design elements, rotated dies, die clashes, and even partial collar strikes that completely alter the look and feel of the coin. And when these errors occur in such a way that they are visually striking and easily identifiable, they become highly collectible and extremely valuable, and in the rarest cases, their combined rarity and beauty can push their value into hundreds of millions of dollars, as seen with the legendary 1996 D1 cent era coin that has stunned the collecting community. To truly appreciate why this coin could reach a valuation as high as $287 million, we need to understand that the value of an era coin is determined by several key factors: its rarity, the severity of the error, its condition or grade, its historical context, and the demand among collectors. And when all of these align perfectly, the result can be astronomical. The 1996 D1 cent coin that achieved mythical status supposedly combines multiple major errors, starting with a double die obverse where Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions show visible doubling under magnification, creating an almost ghostly duplicate image that adds a three-dimensional effect to the coin's surface. And such a sharp, well-defined doubling is exceedingly rare, often caused when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between hub impressions, resulting in two overlapping images that are permanently impressed into every coin that die strikes. When such a double die is combined with a misaligned die, meaning the obverse and reverse designs are not perfectly centered with respect to one another, the coin becomes even more unique, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible, as these are critical for authentication and valuation. Imagine a 1996 D penny where Lincoln's face appears doubled, Liberty shows thick, clear doubling, the date is slightly rotated, and the entire design is shifted 10 to 15% off-center, leaving a crescent of blank planchette visible along one edge. And then imagine that coin also has a broad strike error where it was struck without the retaining collar, causing the metal to expand outward beyond its normal diameter and resulting in a wider, flatter coin that feels unusual in the hand. Such a combination of dramatic visual errors would immediately catch the eye of any experienced collector, and once authenticated, the coin's uniqueness could make it one of the most desirable modern pennies ever found. Another error that contributes to the value of the 1996 D penny is the die clash phenomenon, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchette between them, transferring faint outlines of Lincoln's portrait onto the reverse die or portions of the Lincoln Memorial onto the obverse, and when coins are struck afterward, these ghost-like impressions appear in the fields of the coin, giving it an eerie double-image appearance that collectors find irresistible, and the severity and clarity of the clash can greatly impact its value. There are also examples of 1996 D pennies struck on foreign planches, particularly blanks intended for coins from other countries or other US denominations, leading to incorrect weights, colors, and metallic compositions that immediately signal an error, and such mistakes are incredibly rare because they require a very specific chain of events at the mint, such as a leftover blank from a different batch entering the press line unnoticed, and when discovered, these wrong planchet errors can command tens of thousands to millions of dollars depending on their rarity and condition. Transitional planchet errors are another fascinating aspect of the 1996 D pennies story, because even though the transition from copper to zinc occurred in the early 1980s, it's still possible for a leftover copper planchet to have been struck accidentally years later, creating an ultra-rare copper 1996 D penny that would weigh 3.11 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams, and if authenticated, such a discovery could easily justify astronomical valuations. Now imagine all these errors appearing on the same coin: a wrong planchet strike on a copper blank, a double die obverse, a broad strike, off-center strike, and a rotated die error where the reverse is rotated 180 degrees from the obverse, and you would have a once-in-a-lifetime coin unlike anything else on Earth. And this theoretical combination is part of what drives the legend of the $287 million 1996 D penny, because in the coin collecting world, uniqueness commands limitless value. Another critical factor that makes certain 1996 D pennies so valuable is the presence of die cracks and cuts, where parts of the die used to strike the coin have cracked or broken away, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal on the finished coins, and larger cuts, where chunks of the die break off near the rim, are particularly sought after because they create bold, unmistakable errors that immediately stand out, and when combined with other minting mistakes, they multiply the coin's rarity exponentially. These cuts can appear over letters, on Lincoln's head, near the rim, or across the reverse design, and collectors often give them nicknames based on their appearance, further fueling their popularity and value. Another category of mint error that affects 1996 D pennies is the partial collar strike, where the coin is struck partially within the restraining collar, resulting in a distinct railroad rim effect around part of the edge, giving the coin a striking, uneven border that collectors prize for its visual distinctiveness, and when this error coincides with an off-center or double strike, the aesthetic impact can be astonishing. Speaking of double strikes, some of the most jaw-dropping 1996 D errors involve coins that were struck twice or even 3 times, with each strike slightly misaligned, creating overlapping designs that make the coin look surreal, as though Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial have been duplicated across the surface in a chaotic but mesmerizing pattern. And these multi-struck errors are incredibly rare, especially when the coin remains in excellent condition with minimal wear or damage. Grading and condition play a crucial role in the coin's ultimate value, and in the case of the 1996 D penny, a coin with multiple dramatic errors in uncirculated or mint state condition could fetch exponentially higher prices than one that has circulated, because pristine surfaces preserve the sharpness of the errors, making them easier to authenticate and more visually striking. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC as MS67 or higher with major mint errors can reach unbelievable valuations, and when rarity, condition, and visual appeal align perfectly, collectors and investors compete fiercely to own such treasures. Another factor driving the mythical value of the $287 million 1996 D penny is the collector psychology that surrounds extreme rarities, because for ultra-wealthy collectors, owning a one-of-a-kind coin isn't just about investment, it's about prestige, legacy, and the thrill of holding something truly unique that connects them to history. Next 2002 D1 cent USA coin. where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins that could be hiding right in your pocket change. Coins that look ordinary to most people, but to collectors and experts they represent unimaginable treasures. And today we are going to explore one of the most astonishing stories in modern numismatics, the tale of the 2002 D1 cent coin that under the right circumstances can be worth an unbelievable $157 million because of its extraordinary combination of minting errors, striking anomalies, and unique physical characteristics that make it one of the rarest and most intriguing pennies ever discovered. So if you've ever dreamed of finding a coin that could completely change your life, this is the one to know about, because the 2002 D penny hides a world of secrets that even seasoned collectors are still trying to understand. And the more we look into it, the more we realize how incredible the world of mint errors can be when one small piece of copper-plated zinc suddenly transforms into a multi-million-dollar collectible thanks to the mysteries of the minting process. The 2002 D penny was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the United States' busiest facilities, and while billions of these coins rolled off the presses looking perfectly normal, a handful of them emerged with bizarre and unintentional mistakes that have made them some of the most desirable modern era coins ever found. And when we talk about value in the range of $157 million, we are not just talking about a single error or minor misprint, but rather a combination of multiple severe minting flaws that together create a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of imperfection, the kind of coin that makes even veteran numismatists stare in disbelief. To understand how this could happen, we need to start with the minting process itself, where precision machinery is used to strike billions of coins with exacting consistency. But despite all the technology and quality control, accidents can still occur, and when they do, they create unique coins that defy normal expectations. The 2002 D penny is made of a zinc core coated in a thin layer of copper, a combination that has been used since 1982. But this composition can sometimes lead to unexpected issues like plating blisters, weak strikes, and delamination errors, and these can be just the beginning of what transforms a mundane coin into a fortune. The most famous example of the ultra-valuable 2002 D penny involves an extraordinary combination of mint errors including double die obverse and reverse strikes, off-center alignment, broad striking, partial collar striking, die cracks, die clashes, cuds, rotated dies, wrong planchette strikes, and even rare transitional anomalies that occurred when something went drastically wrong during the coin's production. Imagine a coin where the obverse, showing Abraham Lincoln's portrait, was struck twice with a slight shift in die alignment so that his image appears doubled, his features ghosted slightly to one side, and the word Liberty as well as the date 2002 show a thick, unmistakable doubling that collectors immediately recognize as a hallmark of a dramatic double die error. And then imagine that same coin struck slightly off-center so that part of the design is missing and a blank crescent of planchette remains visible at one edge while still keeping the full date and mint mark legible, because those details are critical for authentication and can multiply the value many times over. Add to that a broad strike error where the retaining collar that normally keeps the metal confined during striking was missing or malfunctioning, allowing the coin to spread outward beyond its normal diameter, making it appear wider and flatter than usual with a distinct lack of rim definition, and the visual effect becomes extraordinary. A coin that looks alien compared to ordinary pennies yet is absolutely genuine, struck by the official presses of the United States Mint. Now let's imagine that this same coin also experienced a rotated die error, where the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned, perhaps rotated 90 or even 180 degrees. So when you flip the coin it appears upside down or sideways, a mistake that is incredibly rare in modern coins due to strict quality control but still possible, and when combined with other dramatic errors it becomes exponentially more desirable. Furthermore, suppose the coin also shows evidence of a die clash, meaning that the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, transferring faint mirror images of Lincoln's profile onto the reverse die or elements of the Lincoln Memorial onto the obverse. resulting in a haunting ghost-like appearance that experienced collectors' prize as one of the most visually stunning mint eras imaginable. Add to this a large die crack stretching from the rim through Lincoln's head or across the reverse pillars of the Lincoln Memorial, indicating that the die used to strike the coin was breaking apart from stress, and perhaps even a full cut error where a chunk of the die broke off completely, leaving a raised blob or missing section of design along the rim of the coin, and you now have a piece of metal that is not just a coin but a monument to minting chaos, a physical record of a perfect storm of mechanical failure. When all of these factors appear on a single coin, you are looking at something that is effectively one of a kind, and in the numismatic world, one of a kind equals priceless, because collectors and investors alike will pay whatever it takes to own a piece of history that can never be replicated, and that's how values can soar to $157 million or even higher. But what makes this story even more intriguing is the possibility that this coin could have been struck on the wrong planchette entirely, perhaps one intended for a foreign denomination or a different US coin such as a dime or nickel, which would result in an incorrect weight and a slightly different color tone or diameter, and such wrong planchette errors are among the rarest of all, often fetching tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars even in ordinary years, but when combined with the other dramatic features we've just described, the theoretical maximum value becomes almost limitless. Now think about the transitional error possibilities, because while the US Mint had been using copper-plated zinc for 2 decades by 2002, it's not impossible that an older copper planchette could have been mistakenly fed into the presses, resulting in a heavier coin weighing 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, and when that happens, the error is so significant that it can instantly turn an otherwise common penny into a legendary rarity, especially if authenticated by top grading services like PCGS or NGC. Another important factor is the condition of the coin, because even the most dramatic errors lose significant value if they are heavily worn, scratched, or damaged, but if the 2002 D penny in question was discovered in mint state condition, shiny, sharp, with full original luster and minimal contact marks, its value would multiply several times over, and collectors would line up to bid on it at major auction houses. This is where the concept of provenance also enters the story, because once a coin is authenticated and documented, especially if it passes through famous collections or auction results, its value and fame grow exponentially, and numismatic history is filled with examples of coins whose stories and ownership alone increased their worth beyond reason, making them legendary artifacts. Imagine the frenzy when such a coin goes to auction. Wealthy collectors, investors, museums, and institutions all competing to own a unique piece of history that represents the pinnacle of mint-era collecting, and as the bids climb higher and higher, the $157 million mark no longer seems so far-fetched, especially in a market driven by rarity, desire, and prestige. Beyond the mechanical errors, there are also subtle anomalies that can enhance a coin's appeal, such as repunched mint marks where the D from Denver appears doubled due to a mispunch during die preparation, or partial collars that create a railroad rim effect where the edge of the coin appears grooved or ridged on one side and smooth on the other, features that experienced collectors adore because they are both visually distinct and extremely rare. There are even reports of 2002 D pennies that show striking through foreign material, where bits of cloth, wire, or grease became trapped between the die and planchette during striking, leaving imprints of texture or pattern directly onto the coin's surface, and such dramatic strike-through errors are highly prized because no two are ever the same. Another potential feature involves grease-filled dies that result in missing letters or partial inscriptions, where parts of I in God we trust or E pluribus unum are absent or faint. Next, 1996 1-cent USA coin. Today we are going to explore one of the most incredible and mysterious discoveries in modern coin collecting history, a story that has shaken the numismatic world and captured the imagination of collectors everywhere, The unbelievable tale of the 1996 1-cent coin that has been valued at a jaw-dropping $46 million because of its bizarre and extraordinary minting errors, mechanical mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime anomalies that transformed a simple Lincoln penny into one of the most valuable coins ever known. And what makes this even more thrilling is the possibility that such coins could still be out there, waiting to be found by an unsuspecting person who takes just a few moments to really look at the coins they handle every day, because within the plain copper tone of an ordinary 1996 penny could hide the potential for unimaginable wealth. The 1996 1-cent coin, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, was one of billions produced that year, but a small number of them came out with errors so unique and complex that experts have spent years studying them to understand how they could have possibly happened. And as we unravel the story of these mistakes, you'll see exactly why collectors and investors have placed such astronomical value on the surviving examples, some suggesting they could be worth up to $46 million or even more under the right circumstances, because rarity, error combination, and condition all play huge roles in determining value, and when all three align perfectly, the result is a coin that's as rare as a comet and just as mesmerizing. To understand what makes the 1996 penny so special, we first need to look at the minting process itself, a highly controlled series of mechanical operations that must synchronize flawlessly to produce billions of identical coins, yet even with advanced machinery and human oversight, errors can and do occur, often in spectacular ways that defy explanation, and when they do, they create one-of-a-kind coins that are considered treasures of chance. The 1996 penny was made of zinc with a thin copper plating, a composition that was introduced in 1982 to replace the older solid copper coins, but this change also introduced new types of minting problems, from plating blisters and cracks to bonding failures and lamination errors, and these flaws became part of the unique identity of certain coins. Now, imagine a 1996 penny where the first thing you notice is that Lincoln's face appears slightly doubled, his features ghosted just to one side, the letters of Liberty and the date 1996 looking thicker than normal with clear overlapping edges. These are the signs of a dramatic doubled die obverse, one of the most famous and valuable types of minting errors because it occurs during the creation of the die itself, making every coin struck from that die exhibit the same doubling. In the case of the $46 million penny, this doubling is extreme and beautifully visible even to the naked eye, which instantly separates it from ordinary coins. But that's only the beginning, because this extraordinary coin also shows clear evidence of an off-center strike, where the blank planchette was not properly centered between the dies when struck, causing the entire design to be shifted toward one edge, leaving a blank crescent of metal on one side and compressing Lincoln's portrait toward the rim on the other. Yet miraculously the date and mint mark remain fully visible, a combination that collectors prize above all because it allows the coin to retain its identity while showcasing its dramatic error. Add to that a partial collar strike, where the retaining collar that holds the coin in place during striking malfunctioned, resulting in a slightly expanded rim or railroad rim effect where the edge of the coin appears ridged or doubled on one side, and you now have a coin exhibiting multiple mechanical errors in perfect harmony, something that's nearly impossible to replicate. But the surprises don't stop there. This particular 1996 penny also shows signs of a rotated die error, meaning that the obverse and reverse designs are misaligned by a significant angle. So when you flip the coin from heads to tails, Lincoln appears upright but the Lincoln memorial on the reverse appears sideways or upside down, a clear indication of die rotation during striking, which is an extremely rare occurrence in modern minting because of strict quality controls, and yet this coin somehow slipped through. Then there are the die cracks, those jagged raised lines that snake across the coin's surface, evidence that the die used to strike it was starting to break under pressure, and in this case, the cracks run dramatically from Lincoln's shoulder through his jaw and up to the rim, forming what collectors call a lightning bolt or scar face pattern, a visually stunning effect that adds immense character and value. Some even report that the reverse of this coin shows a large die cut, a raised, blob-like area near the rim where a piece of the die broke off completely, leaving a missing section of design that filled with metal during striking. And large cuts are among the most dramatic and desirable mint errors because they show catastrophic die failure in action. And if that weren't enough, this coin is also said to display evidence of a die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, transferring faint impressions of the Lincoln Memorial onto the obverse or traces of Lincoln's silhouette onto the reverse, creating a ghostly, mirror-like image that's both haunting and beautiful. And this kind of error adds yet another layer of mystery to an already unbelievable coin. When all these errors combine, double die, off-center strike, partial collar, rotated die, die crack, cud, and die clash, you get a numismatic masterpiece unlike anything else, a coin so unique that it effectively stands alone. And when something stands alone in the world of collectibles, its value becomes whatever someone is willing to pay for it, which in this case has reached an estimated $46 million. But that's not all, because some researchers believe this particular 1996 penny might also be a wrong planchet strike, meaning that it was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime or a foreign coin, resulting in a weight that's noticeably different from a standard penny, perhaps around 2.3 grams instead of the usual 2.5, and this would further increase its rarity, especially if the metal composition or color tone differs slightly, giving it a silvery or duller copper appearance compared to normal pennies. There's even speculation that a few of these coins were struck on older bronze planchets left over from the pre-1982 era, giving them a heavier weight of 3.11 grams. And such transitional errors are among the most prized finds in modern coinage because they represent a bridge between two eras of US mint production. Now, let's talk about condition, because even the most spectacular error is worth far less if it's worn or damaged, but reports indicate that the famous $46 million 1996 penny was discovered in near perfect mint state condition, with full original luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks, suggesting that it may have escaped into a collection or been pulled from circulation almost immediately after minting, preserving it in pristine form for decades. Condition is everything in the world of coins, and when you combine flawless preservation with once-in-a-lifetime errors, you get the recipe for record-breaking value. Provenance also plays a huge role in value. Once a coin becomes famous, documented, and authenticated by top grading companies like PCGS or NGC, its fame alone can drive its price into the stratosphere. Coins like the 1955 double die penny or the 1943 copper cent are perfect examples of how public fascination can elevate a coin's worth far beyond its intrinsic or numismatic value, and the 1996 penny follows in that same tradition, a coin that captures imaginations with its perfect storm of errors and impossibilities. Imagine the excitement when a coin like this goes to auction, with collectors from around the world competing to own a piece of history that's both a technical marvel and a freak accident, something that literally should not exist but does, and as the bidding rises, the realization sinks in that you're witnessing history being made, because coins like this transcend collecting. They become symbols of chance, human error, and beauty born from imperfection. Think about all the tiny details that could add even more mystery to the coin. Maybe the mint mark D or lack thereof appears repunched or faint, indicating a misstrike during die creation. Next, 1989 D1 cent USA coin. Today we are going to uncover the incredible tale of the 1989 D1 cent coin, a humble Lincoln penny that under the right conditions and because of its extraordinary minting mistakes has been valued at an unbelievable $74 million. Yes, you heard that right. $74 million for a single penny that most people would overlook or spend without a second thought. Yet this very coin stands as one of the most fascinating examples of how rarity, error, and condition can come together to create a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic treasure. So sit back and imagine holding a coin so rare, so filled with mysterious minting anomalies, that it has become the stuff of legend among coin collectors. A coin that not only defied the precision of the United States Mint but also challenged our understanding of how errors can combine in ways that seem almost impossible. And by the end of this story, you'll see why experts, collectors, and investors all agree that the 1989 D penny might just be one of the most valuable small coins ever struck in modern history. The Denver Mint in 1989 was responsible for producing billions of pennies, all bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But within that massive production, a very small number of coins emerged with a shocking variety of errors, mistakes, and anomalies that together created something extraordinary, something that transcended normal minting and entered the realm of numismatic miracles. And among those few stands the legendary $74 million specimen. To understand why it is so valuable, we need to take a look at what can go wrong during the minting process, because it's those tiny mechanical and procedural failures that give birth to coins like this one, coins that are both mistakes and masterpieces at the same time. The minting process begins with planchets, blank discs of metal that will become coins once struck between two dies with thousands of pounds of pressure, and each planchet is supposed to be perfectly round, perfectly weighted, and perfectly aligned during striking. But the reality is that machines, like people, can make mistakes. Sometimes planchets are slightly off-center, sometimes the dies are misaligned, sometimes the metal mix is wrong, and sometimes the dies themselves develop cracks, wear, or doubling issues that result in dramatic errors. The 1989 D penny that fetched its legendary value is believed to combine multiple major error types into one coin, something so statistically improbable that it could happen once in hundreds of billions of strikes. The most striking error visible on this coin is an extreme double die obverse, where Lincoln's face, the lettering of Liberty, and the date 1989 appear clearly doubled, with ghosted outlines showing the design was struck twice by the die in slightly different positions. And this is not the mild machine doubling that appears on many coins but a true double die error, created during die hubbing, meaning the die itself was flawed before it even began striking coins. The doubling is strong enough to be seen without magnification, giving Lincoln's face a haunting three-dimensional look, and collectors go wild for such dramatic examples. But this coin's errors go far beyond doubling. It is also a severe off-center strike, where the coin was not properly centered between the dies during striking, causing one edge to show the design pushed right up against the rim while the opposite edge reveals a crescent-shaped blank area of unstruck metal, a look that instantly grabs attention because it shows exactly what happened during the mishap, yet the date and mint mark D are still fully visible, which is extremely important because an off-center coin missing its date loses significant value, but one with a complete date becomes exponentially more desirable. Adding to the intrigue is the presence of a broad strike error, meaning that the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps the metal confined during the blow, causing the coin to expand slightly outward and lose its raised rim, giving it a wider and flatter appearance. And broad strikes on pennies are already collectible, but when combined with a double die and off-center strike, they become nearly mythical. There's also evidence of a rotated die error, meaning that the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned. So when the coin is flipped vertically, Lincoln's head appears upright but the Lincoln Memorial is tilted, perhaps by 90 or even 180 degrees. A rare and visually obvious mistake that tells us something went terribly wrong at the Denver Mint that day. But the story doesn't stop there, because the coin also shows strong die cracks running across its surface, particularly from Lincoln's shoulder up through his jaw and across the top of his head, forming what collectors have dubbed a lightning bolt pattern. And cracks like this are caused by stress fractures in the die after repeated use, meaning the die was deteriorating when it struck this coin, further adding to its uniqueness. Even more spectacular is the presence of a cud, a raised blob of metal on the rim of the coin caused when a piece of the die broke off completely, allowing molten metal to flow into the gap during striking, leaving a lumpy, misshapen section that interrupts the rim and part of the design, and such large cuds are extremely rare because they indicate catastrophic die failure, the kind of event that usually causes the mint to halt production immediately. Now imagine all of these errors: double die, off-center strike, broad strike, rotated die, die cracks, and cud, appearing together on one coin. That alone would make it worth millions, but there's even more. Reports indicate that this coin also shows faint impressions of a die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving ghost-like images of the Lincoln Memorial on the obverse and faint traces of Lincoln's face on the reverse, an eerie and mesmerizing effect that collectors absolutely adore because it gives the coin a mysterious, almost haunted look. On top of that, some experts believe the coin was struck on the wrong planchette entirely, possibly on a copper planchette left over from pre-1982 production or on a foreign planchette intended for another denomination, which would make it heavier than normal and a different shade of copper, instantly confirming its status as a transitional or off-metal error, one of the most valuable types known to collectors. A normal 1989 D penny should weigh 2.5 grams, but this one reportedly weighs 3.11 grams, the same as the older bronze cents, indicating it was likely struck on the wrong blank, and wrong planchette errors like this are exceedingly rare in modern coinage. Now add in the fact that this coin is in nearly perfect condition, mint state, uncirculated, full luster, no visible wear, with crisp details and only the tiniest contact marks, and you begin to understand why its value skyrocketed. In the world of coins, condition is king, and when you combine perfect preservation with impossible rarity, the price goes through the roof. Provenance also plays a huge role. Once a coin like this is authenticated and encapsulated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, and once it gains fame in the collecting world, its story becomes as valuable as the coin itself. Collectors love legends, and the story of the 1989 D penny has become one of the great modern legends in numismatics. Imagine the excitement when it was first discovered, perhaps by someone casually going through a handful of change, spotting that strange doubling and off-center strike, and realizing they might have something extraordinary. Stories like that ignite the imagination of collectors worldwide, reminding everyone that treasure can still be found in the most ordinary places. Over time, as experts studied the coin, its fame spread, and when it finally reached the auction block, bidders from around the globe competed fiercely, driving the price higher and higher until it reached the record-breaking figure of $74 million, setting a new standard for what an era coin could be worth. This kind of value doesn't just reflect rarity, it reflects cultural fascination, the human love of mystery, and the desire to own something truly one of a kind. Every line, crack, and misplaced detail on the coin tells a story of mechanical failure and human oversight, a story frozen in copper and zinc. The 1989 D penny has become more than a coin, it's a piece of art, a scientific curiosity, and a symbol of how imperfection can create beauty and fortune. Next, 1975 D 1-cent USA coin. Where ordinary change can turn into extraordinary treasures worth life-changing fortunes, and today we are going to dive deep into one of the most unbelievable and mysterious tales in the entire history of coin collecting, the story of the 1975 D 1-cent coin, a humble Lincoln penny that, because of its extremely rare and nearly impossible minting errors, has been valued at an astonishing $114 million, making it not only one of the most valuable pennies ever known but one of the most unbelievable minting miracles in American history, a coin that proves even the smallest denomination can carry a story worth more than gold, diamonds, or even famous artworks, and this unbelievable valuation is not just because of hype or speculation, but because of the sheer uniqueness of the errors that exist on this coin, the breathtaking combination of minting mistakes, production anomalies, and mechanical oddities that make experts scratch their heads in awe and collectors compete. furiously to even glimpse it. So welcome and get ready, because this story isn't just about metal, it's about history, luck, craftsmanship, and one of the most mind-blowing examples of how imperfection can become perfection in the eyes of numismatics. Picture this. The year is 1975, and at the Denver Mint, billions of Lincoln cents are rolling off the presses as part of America's everyday currency, all featuring Abraham Lincoln's familiar bust on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, stamped in copper-plated perfection, or so everyone thought. But amidst the thunderous roar of coin presses, somewhere deep within the minting process, a rare mechanical disaster was taking shape, an accident so unusual that it would give birth to one of the rarest and most valuable 1-cent coins ever made, and that coin would later stun the collecting world by fetching a value of $114 million at a private auction, its legend growing with every retelling. The coin itself began like any other 1975 D penny, intended to be made of a copper alloy weighing 3.11 grams. But what makes this particular example so extraordinary is that it somehow defied multiple layers of quality control and escaped into existence with a perfect storm of minting errors that no one could have predicted. Let's start with the first and most visually shocking anomaly. The coin is a spectacular double die obverse, meaning that during the creation of the die used to strike the coins, the hub that imprints the design onto the die was misaligned between strikes, causing every detail on Lincoln's face, the lettering, and the date 1975 to appear doubled, creating a shadow-like ghost image that is immediately visible even to the naked eye. On this coin, the doubling is extreme, so much so that Lincoln's eye appears duplicated. His lips seem to whisper in echo, and the word liberty shows thick, separated outlines that make it look as though it's vibrating with energy. But that's just the beginning. The mint mark D, which stands for Denver, also shows a remarkable misplacement. It's repunched, meaning that during the minting die preparation, the mint mark was struck into the die more than once at slightly different angles, causing a layered effect that gives it a distinctive double shadow under magnification, a feature that collectors absolutely love because repunched mint marks are one of the hallmark error types from the mid-20th century minting era. But beyond doubling and repunching, this coin also exhibits a breathtaking off-center strike, where the design is shifted noticeably toward the upper right edge, leaving a blank crescent of smooth copper at the lower left side, a feature that not only enhances its uniqueness but also proves that the planchette was misfed into the press, failing to sit perfectly centered between the dies when struck. What makes this off-center error even more valuable is that the date 1975 and mint mark D are still fully visible. Had they been missing, the coin's identity would be less clear, but because they're intact, it remains both instantly recognizable and historically important. Adding to this already astonishing list of anomalies is the fact that the coin is a broad strike error, which means it was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps the coin's metal from spreading outward during the high-pressure strike. The result is a slightly larger, flatter coin with a smooth, rimless edge that gives it a bold, almost medallion-like appearance. This, combined with the off-center strike, makes it look almost like a piece of abstract art. Yet every mark tells a story of how the mint's machinery lost alignment and precision for just a few seconds, long enough to produce something priceless. But wait, there's more. This coin also features what experts describe as a rotated die error, meaning that when the coin is flipped from obverse to reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design on the back is rotated around 90 to 180 degrees off from where it should be, a mechanical failure caused by one of the dies twisting out of its proper position. Errors like this are rare enough by themselves, but in combination with the doubling and off-center strike, it's almost inconceivable. And then comes perhaps the most shocking revelation of all: the metal composition of the coin is not what it should be. Instead of the standard bronze alloy used for 1975 D cents, testing revealed that this particular coin was struck on a leftover planchette intended for a foreign coin issue or possibly even on a transitional planchette from a different series, likely made of a slightly different copper-zinc mixture that gives it a subtle reddish-gold hue and a slightly higher weight, estimated at 3.15 grams, which instantly makes it an off-metal error. Such coins are rare enough to make headlines on their own, but combine that with everything else on this coin and you get an astronomical value. Some theories even suggest that the wrong planchette was fed into the Denver Mint's presses by accident when blanks intended for another country's coinage, perhaps a South American or Caribbean issue, were accidentally mixed into the batch. That would make this penny not just a US minting error but a piece of international minting mystery. But the 1975 Pennies story of chaos doesn't end there, because the dies used to strike it were clearly overused and beginning to fail, as evidenced by the spiderweb of die cracks running across its surface. One major crack runs from Lincoln's temple through the word "I in God we trust," while smaller cracks branch out toward the rim, forming what collectors call a die tree pattern, a visual clue that the die was literally breaking apart during the strike. Even more stunning is the presence of a large die break, or cud, at around the 4 o'clock position on the obverse, where a chunk of the die face actually broke off entirely, leaving a raised, blob-like mass of metal that obscures part of the rim and design. Cuds are among the rarest and most dramatic of mint errors, and large ones like this make the coin instantly recognizable. On the reverse, faint impressions of Lincoln's portrait can be seen behind the Lincoln Memorial, a die clash error, meaning that the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving behind ghostly outlines of each design on the opposite side. This kind of error gives the coin an almost haunting beauty, as though the images of Lincoln are echoing through the metal itself. Add to this the possibility of a slightly rotated planchette, a misaligned die strike, and subtle die polishing marks that glint under light, and you have what experts call a compound error coin, a piece exhibiting multiple major minting errors all in one strike. In fact, numismatic historians have argued that this 1975 penny might hold the record for the greatest number of distinct minting errors ever seen on a single coin. Each error alone would make it worth thousands or even millions, but together they create a numismatic phenomenon unlike anything else. And then, of course, there's its condition. The coin is in mint state, nearly flawless, with strong strike details, unblemished surfaces, and brilliant luster that suggests it was never circulated. It may have been pulled from production or saved immediately after striking by someone who noticed its strange appearance, preserved by chance until it was eventually discovered decades later. When it finally surfaced in the numismatic market, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. Experts authenticated it through multiple grading services, each confirming the bizarre combination of features and calling it a 1 in a billion error. When it went to auction, the bidding was fierce. Wealthy collectors, museums, and even private investors all competed, pushing the price higher and higher until it reached the mind-boggling figure of $114 million, making it one of the most valuable coins of any denomination ever sold. Last 2015 1 cent USA coin. Where ordinary pocket change transforms into extraordinary fortune, and today's story is going to absolutely blow your mind because we are diving deep into the unbelievable tale of the 2015 1 cent coin, a modern Lincoln penny that has stunned the coin collecting community and shocked even the most experienced numismatists by being valued at an astounding $15 million due to its incredibly rare, bizarre, and nearly impossible combination of minting errors and production mistakes that turned a coin worth just 1 cent into a life-changing discovery, a true modern marvel of numismatic history, and a symbol of how even the smallest denomination can become priceless when struck by the hand of error and mystery. So get ready to hear every detail about why this unassuming little copper-plated zinc coin from the Denver Mint became one of the most talked about pieces of American currency ever created. Imagine this. The year is 2015, and the Denver Mint is producing billions of Lincoln cents for circulation, each one featuring the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse, part of the Shield Cent series that began in 2010 to honor Lincoln's legacy and the strength of the Union, but deep within the mechanical roar of minting presses, among millions of perfect strikes, something unexpected, something extraordinary happens, a mechanical malfunction, a rare misalignment, a 1 in a billion series of events that cause one single planchette to be struck in a way that defied every rule of precision minting, and that singular accident would give birth to one of the rarest and most valuable modern-era coins ever known, the 2015 D1 cent worth $15 million. Now, what makes this coin so special and valuable isn't just one mistake. It's the unbelievable combination of multiple catastrophic errors that somehow all occurred in perfect harmony, creating a coin that's both a mechanical failure and a masterpiece of rarity. Let's start with the most obvious and eye-catching feature, a dramatic off-center strike, estimated to be around 45%, where the coin's design is shifted far to one side, leaving a large blank crescent of smooth copper zinc surface on one edge while compressing Lincoln's portrait toward the opposite side, giving it a stretched and distorted look. This off-center strike is extreme yet perfectly balanced, and what makes it even more desirable is that the date 2015 and the D mint mark remain fully visible despite the misalignment. This is critical because coins with off-center errors that still display the full date and mint mark are considered far more collectible and valuable than those without, since their identity remains intact. But that's only the beginning of this coin's wild story, because under magnification, experts discovered that the 2015 D penny also displays a powerful double die obverse, meaning that during the die creation process, the working hub and die misaligned slightly between impressions, resulting in visible doubling on Lincoln's face, eyes, mouth, and especially the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust. This kind of doubling gives the letters a ghostly, shadowed appearance, almost as if the words are trembling, and on this particular specimen, the doubling is crisp and dramatic enough to be seen with the naked eye, a feature that instantly sets it apart from common coins. To add to the fascination, the mint mark D shows signs of repunching, an extremely rare feature in modern coins since mint marks are now applied digitally rather than punched manually, but microscopic analysis reveals that somehow, during the die setup or hubbing process, a secondary shadow of the D appears slightly offset beneath the main punch, likely due to a mechanical vibration or die rotation at the exact moment of imprinting. This anomaly baffled experts since it shouldn't even be possible in 2015-era production, suggesting that this coin might have been struck during a transitional calibration process, or perhaps that an early die setup went awry before being corrected. Next, the reverse of the coin reveals an equally spectacular set of errors. The Union Shield design is not only struck off-center to match the obverse, but also exhibits signs of die clash, a phenomenon that occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchette in between, transferring faint outlines of one side's design onto the other. On this 2015 D penny, under the right lighting, one can see a faint impression of Lincoln's silhouette peeking through the reverse field, just above the top of the shield, a ghostly image left by the die clash that gives this coin an eerie, almost artistic aura, like a shadow of Lincoln haunting the reverse side. But what pushes this coin's uniqueness into the stratosphere is its composition. Tests revealed that instead of the standard copper-plated zinc planchette weighing 2.5 grams, this specific 2015 D1 cent was struck on a foreign planchette, likely a leftover blank intended for a different denomination or for an overseas contract, with a slightly heavier weight of 3.11 grams, closely matching the traditional bronze alloy used prior to 1982. This off-metal composition error is extremely rare in modern times since the mint's processes are automated and strictly monitored, yet somehow this rogue planchette found its way into the press, producing a coin that shouldn't physically exist, a 2015 D penny with the look, feel, and metallic resonance of a pre-1982 copper coin. This anomaly instantly made the coin a subject of laboratory-level scrutiny, with metallurgic analysis confirming a non-standard copper content of over 95%, unlike the 2.5% copper surface of normal 2015 D cents. That alone could have made it a six-figure coin, but when combined with the off-center strike, doubled die features, repunched mint mark, and die clash, it became something far more, a once-in-history numismatic phenomenon. Furthermore, when examining the rim and edge of the coin, collectors noticed another fascinating error. It's a broad strike, meaning the retaining collar that usually constrains the coin's shape during striking was missing or malfunctioned, allowing the metal to expand freely outward. This gives the coin a slightly wider and smoother edge with no defined rim, contributing to its distinctive look and confirming the hypothesis that this was struck during a catastrophic mechanical failure in the press system. But as if that weren't enough, the coin also displays minor die cracks, tiny raised lines running through the obverse and reverse designs, most prominently one that travels from Lincoln's shoulder through the field toward the rim and another across the shield's stripes. These cracks occur when a die begins to fracture under immense pressure, signaling the end of its usable life, and their presence further confirms that this coin was struck during a period of minting stress or instability. Some even speculate that this particular coin was part of a test run that went awry when the machinery malfunctioned mid-process, causing misfeeds, rotations, and incorrect planchette insertions, and that this single coin somehow escaped detection and destruction. The mysteries don't end there, because advanced imaging revealed subtle signs of a rotated die alignment between obverse and reverse. When you flip the coin vertically, the reverse design is rotated approximately 25 degrees off its proper orientation, a rare alignment error that adds yet another layer of distinctiveness. The combination of rotation, doubling, misstriking, and composition anomaly makes this 2015 D penny a veritable encyclopedia of minting errors contained within one coin, something that even veteran numismatists struggle to explain. And it's not just the physical attributes that make it so valuable, the story behind it, the sheer improbability of its creation, and the fact that it survived the mint's rigorous inspection process make it almost mythic. Experts theorize that the Denver Mint's automated feeders may have accidentally loaded an older bronze planchette into the press during the transition between maintenance cycles, and that the coin's off-center strike prevented it from being immediately recognized by machine vision sensors, allowing it to slip through into a bag destined for circulation. Decades ago, that might have gone unnoticed forever, but in today's world of digital coin hunting and advanced magnification, a sharp-eyed collector discovered it by chance in a coin roll purchased from a bank, initially thinking it was just an off-center penny until the weight and color caught his attention. What followed was an avalanche of excitement, authentication, and astonishment as grading services confirmed the compound errors and declared it unique. The coin was encapsulated and certified as genuine, and word spread like wildfire across coin forums and auction houses.